Well, thank you for joining me today. I am Carol Koch, and this is the Women on the Frontlines Summer Devotional. And our topic this year is She is the Storm. And I absolutely love that. Well, the verse from Scripture that was chosen to go along with that title was in the area of Galatians 5:22. And they're the fruit of the Spirit, which you're probably all familiar with. And those are love, joy, which joy I got to teach on a few weeks ago, and that joy will always know something that our day of trouble does not know. They will always know the finished work of the cross of Jesus Christ. I love that. That brings a stability to the area of our soul. And then it goes on, and then there's peace, and there's patience, and there's kindness, and there's goodness, and there's faithfulness, and gentleness, self-control. And then it says, against such things there is no law. So, it's fruit. So that means it's a little bit of work to see that manifested in our lives, that it's something that just doesn't fall on us, but like any fruit in the natural, it has to be cultivated. There's some care that is involved in this, making it happen to see the fruit at the end of the growing time for fruit. So it's the same way in the spirit area. There's a little bit of work, a little bit of cultivating that will need to take place. And I was just thinking about this whole area. And again, my topic for today is on the fruit of patience. So I just kind of thought about that, and I guess I never really picked apart that verse before and this particular word. So I just looked up the basic textbook definition of patience. And when I read it, I thought, wow, this is like a loaded definition. So here it is. It says, it's the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Now, that is a loaded definition, isn't it? I want to read it one more time. It says, it's the capacity, the ability to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. And you might be going through something right now to where you waited and you waited and you prayed and you prayed. And sometimes, all of us have prophetic words that have been given. Maybe even I got some years ago that I have not seen it come to pass yet. And sometimes the waiting is the part that can really get hard for us. Well, again, there's that cultivating that needs to take place. There's some things that need to be done. And I think that there's a foundational principle in the Word of the Lord that if we really understand it and we apply it even to this area of patience, of being able, the capacity to accept all the delays that might come into our life, and that is the area of sowing and reaping. And I know maybe this is a little different spin on this, but that principle, I think, will help us in cultivating this ability to be able to wait and to know that there is a day, if God said it, there is a day that it will happen. And basically, there's a couple scriptures that talk about the whole thing of sowing and reaping. And this applies so well to this topic of cultivating patience. In Genesis 2:22, it says, while the earth remains, there's always going to be seed time and harvest. There's going to be day and night, and summer and winter shall not cease. Well, I don't know about you, but I mean, when I woke up this morning, it was day and night's coming, and all these things are still happening. And then there's a verse in Galatians 6:7 that says, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever you sow, that you shall also reap. Now, I think that principle of sowing and reaping, so many times we've just heard it taught in the area of finances, which is absolutely a wonderful truth verse in the area of whatever we give that we're going to reap. But it also applies to, like, I think, every single area of our lives, especially in the area of cultivating the fruit of the Spirit and the textbook definition of what patience really is. It helps us to understand that if we sow it, if God said it according to the word, which, it says about itself, thy word is truth. It's not wrong that there is a day when we have to reap it, because if we didn't, then the word wouldn't be true. And we all know the word is true. It totally is true. It's the only truth that's really for sure on the whole planet. So think about that. I want you to think about that whole foundational principle from the word of sowing and reaping, applying that to that area of patience. That as we sow patience, as we cultivate patience, as we are faced with things that we haven't seen the delay, that we can use this verse on sowing and reaping and apply it to our cultivating process, that we can tolerate the delay, we can put up with the trouble or suffering without making us angry, upset, which would cause us to become bitter, because there is the verse, there is the promise that He gives us according to sowing and reaping. And remember that delayed reaping does not mean that there won't be reaping at all. Maybe it's just not when we expected it. I think many times, and maybe it's for us who live in North America, and probably it's just human nature, that a lot of times when we sow something, we kind of expect it to happen a lot quicker than many times that it does happen. So I just want to encourage you today in the area of patience. I hope this gave a little bit of understanding and applying this principle of sowing and reaping. I hope that will help you as you look at the fruit of the Spirit and you begin to cultivate in every one of these areas the fruit that will cause us to live a more solid life in the area of our soul, and we won't be like tossed to and fro all the times in our emotional realm, but that we can be steady and sound, because we understand that there is a reaping to everything that we sow that is in the area of the Spirit. So bless you, ladies, and thank you for allowing me to be with you for this time.